Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is October 30th, and we have got a great guest for you today. Such a perfect book to talk about for Halloween. You're going to love it if you like magic, if you like imaginative storytelling that has characters that you can really visualize and feel for. You're going to love this book. But let's talk about a few other things first, and then we'll get right to our interview. If you've been following along, you know that we have been running a contest where you could win a 1-year subscription to Book Banter magazine. The PDF format will be emailed to you regularly whenever our issues publish in 2025. Now, all you have to do to enter this contest is go to burkhartbooks.com and join our mailing list, and it's done. We had planned on cutting off the entries on the 25th, but we've had such great response to this. We wanted to go ahead and stretch it out as long as we possibly could. So until tonight at midnight Berlin time, you can still enter. So you have time. Go hop on your computer, get to burkhartbooks.com, join our mailing list, and that's all you have to do. And then tomorrow for Halloween, our treat for one lucky listener, we are going to announce who won a 1-year subscription to Book Banter magazine for season 4. And I have to tell you, from all of the inquiries that we've already been getting for possible guests for next season, you're going to want this magazine because it's going to be amazing. Our seasons just keep getting better and better, and I feel extremely lucky that I'm getting to talk with all of these fantastic authors and share the interviews with all of you. So don't miss out. If you don't win, you can always cancel the subscription to our mailing list. It's not a big deal, but go ahead and enter. What have you got to lose? But for right now, let's get to today's interview. You are going to love this guest. They have got to be the most creatively talented person that I have ever spoken to. Not only do they dance, act, and sing, but they're also an amazing author. Please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, Aislinn Brophy. The way that I always like to start these podcasts is I just have our guests tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
Amazing. So, hi, my name is Aislinn Brophy. I write queer fantasy books that are fun and magical with a little bit of a side of serious. I'm often exploring themes about autonomy, how family shapes who you are, and how your identity impacts the way that you move in the world.
See, and I loved it when your book was brought to me by Penguin because it just fits so much what we were trying to do this year, because I've been really focused on trying to bring books to the audience that are inclusive and bring representation to different groups of people that are not necessarily the mainstream book club kind of books. I wanted something that would hit a lot of people and give them that sense of, oh my God, these people are like me.
I love that. I'm so glad that you think my book fits that category of things, because I think that that to me is really what I'm trying to do here.
Well, and I've been reading Spells to Forget Us. I love the idea behind the story. It is so cool.
Thank you. I think that when I was conceiving of this book, sometimes I think about characters first, but this was very much like the hook came first before anything else. So I was really excited specifically about this concept and how to make this concept work. And I'm excited by how it all turned out.
And I have to say, it's like, I love the names that you have in here too. First of all, Aoife, because I actually learned this name earlier when I interviewed an Irish author, and she had a main character named Aoife. So I actually knew how to pronounce that one.
I love it. Yes, the name is very Irish. I also have an Irish name. My father is from Dublin. I've always enjoyed having a very Irish name, and I wanted to give one of my characters them. And I have some family members who are named Aoife, so I decided that that was the name she was going to have.
Well, and for a lot of like American English speakers, they've never heard of this name, but that's actually quite a common name for Irish, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, my name is also very common in Ireland. When I went there, my name was on keychains. My sisters and I all have very traditional Irish names. So it's very funny to go from an experience growing up where when people are calling roll and they don't know you already, I could tell that just when I heard silence, that that was my name and they had gotten to my name on the roll and they were like, I don't know how to say this and I can't even take a stab at it. And then going over to Ireland and realizing that your name is so common that it's on a keychain at the gas station is very exciting. It's some real contrast. So I was excited to be able to put that name out there and have that experience just very specific beyond the page, even if it's just for me.
Well, and then the other main character is Luna, and I actually have a friend named Luna.
Wow, we're doing well on the names here. I'm glad you have the personal connection for all of them. I really enjoy really character-driven stuff. I like having really vivid people, and I think that I was pretty intentional about names for this one. And I just really love the name Luna. I felt like I wanted something that it went along with who these people were and the people that I was crafting for the page. So I'm glad that you like the names as much as I like them.
Why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about this book?
Yeah. So Spells to Forget Us is set in a world where magic is secret, and a witch named Luna and a non-magical girl named Aoife fall for each other. According to magical law, in order for the witch to tell the non-magical girl about magic, she needs to cast a spell that will erase the non-magical girl's memories about both magic and their relationship if they ever break up. But that memory spell goes wrong, and when they do break up, they actually both end up forgetting each other until they meet again, fall for each other all over again, and recover their memories of the last time that they dated. So, as a result of this memory spell gone wrong, they become trapped in this cycle of meet cutes and breakups.
And I think the cover art that you have for this book is actually perfect for this story.
Oh, the cover is so gorgeous. I feel really, really, really lucky. My cover artist did such a beautiful job with it.
Well, and it's just such a great depiction with the infinity symbol around the two of them. I love the work.
Yeah, I felt very lucky about it because I really wanted characters on the cover, and I was glad that the team thought that that was a good direction to go with. And then they got Zoe, who's the cover artist, to do it. And the infinity symbol was not something that I pitched. I think I vaguely said something that was like, maybe they could be standing on the Charles River or something, because there's a scene in the book that goes with that. But I am not very visually inclined, which is why I absolutely love having my characters on covers because I don't have a very good mind's eye. So it's the first time I get to really see them. So when they were trying to figure out what the book cover was going to look like, I was excited that they also liked that idea. And then Zoe just came back with this incredibly gorgeous scene and elevated anything I had wanted just to the millionth degree. It was incredible.
Now, how long did it take you whenever you first got the concept for this book to actually get it into print and find somebody to publish it?
Yeah, so this book specifically is part of my first book deal. So I had this concept and I pitched it to my editor as the second book in the deal because I had my deal already, and the first book was How to Succeed in Witchcraft, and that one they bought as a whole book. And then the deal had just an open-ended second young adult book. So I pitched this concept, and my editor liked it. So then I sat down and started writing it. It's very interesting because I think that it's gone through some real iterations since I first thought about it. There is obviously with a concept like this, you have to think a little bit about how to make it work and feel realistic and not have a million plot holes. I think in my original concept for it, I had this idea that it was going to work so that the witch was not also forgetting about the girl she was dating. And I really quickly scrapped that when I started trying to plot it out because I just could not come up with a world in which that didn't feel really creepy and manipulative, that
Mhm.
she's just continually seeking out this other girl that doesn't remember her.
Oh, yeah.
So that went goodbye. I threw that one in the trash can. Um, but yeah, I think that this book took me like 9 months to write. It was hard. I am a slow writer anyway, but the concept was complicated enough that I had to get the beginning to work for me to even finish writing it. So it took a while. It took a while working on it to make that happen.
I love how you have Aoife as the like perfect, beautiful showpiece for her family, that the family is all engaged in social media life and she has to be this perfect person all the time.
Yeah, that and that particular arc is one that I really related to, but I felt like making her be a child influencer was a good way to talk about some themes that I was interested in discussing with the character, but in an elevated way.
Hmm.
Especially because a lot of her character arc is about she's a people pleaser and trying to have her assert herself about what she wants in life and what she wants for her own life. And maybe not making everybody happy all the time. And then also specifically, I was really interested with her as well about writing about a character who was mixed race and about how the way that other people perceive her
Hmm.
has impacted her own self-image and how she moves in the world. And so I felt like writing a character who was an influencer and had grown up as a child influencer would be impacted by that because I've always been somewhat horrified by the way that mixed race children are received on the internet. So I decided that I wanted to write about that because I thought that everything that a person who wasn't growing up on the internet would experience would be just really heightened by that experience of being online without having chosen that from an early age.
Well, and I think with the way that society is going towards so much of the community living their lives on social media, I think that's a perfect character to bring into this.
Yeah, I think especially having come out of a pandemic era where many of us were just living our lives entirely online,
Hmm.
I felt this was very, very relatable for me, and I hope for other people as well.
So now, what was it that makes you want to write books about witchcraft? What is it about that that you find appealing?
Oh, I have always just loved magic. I've always been a big fantasy person. I love people with powers and people who have abilities to do things that we can't do in our everyday
Hmm.
life. But also for me, especially in the young adult space, I feel like witches are this way of giving teen girls power that,
Hmm.
our everyday life in the world that we live in maybe doesn't afford them. So especially because I'm writing contemporary fantasy, it's nice to have characters where they might have problems that are relatable to, teens of today, but also that they have this magic as well, so that you know that they are afforded this extra like power and extra ability to create the world that they want and imagine like greater things for themselves. So I think that's part of what draws me to witches, to the genre generally.
I love reading about witches and magic and all this kind of stuff. For me, I always thought for so many things, I have felt like I have no control about it. And the idea of magic is that impression that it would give you ultimate control in a situation.
Yeah, I think that's part of the fun. It's you imagining a world where you are a little less helpless
Hmm.
and have a little bit more power. And I think that that is really empowering, honestly, for me to even to both read and write about.
Since you were saying that this is the second book in your publishing deal, tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about your first book.
Yeah, so my first book is called How to Succeed in Witchcraft, and that book follows Shay, who is an overachieving witch at a prestigious magical magnet school in South Florida. And she has to decide between getting the scholarship for Magical University that she desperately needs or exposing the predatory drama teacher that controls the scholarship.
What inspired this book for you?
Yeah, this book is really, speaking about power and autonomy, is really about young women trying to navigate a world in which people want to disempower them all the time.
Hmm.
I also think that this book is a lot about class for me because the main character is really in this academic rat race. She's really trying to be high achieving. She's trying to get to go to that good college so she can get a good job and provide for her family, who's always done a lot of self-sacrificing to make sure that she has the things that she needs. So I think that was something I really related to and wanted to write about, especially the academic rat race, because I spent my teenagerdom and my young adultness. That's not how you put either of those things, but let's say that was you understood what I meant there.
Yeah.
Um, I spent that era of my life really, really concerned with success and trying to quote unquote make it and follow a more traditional model of what it means to be successful. And especially when you are marginalized in different ways, it can be really hard to make those things happen for yourself. And then you spend all this time looking around and being like, am I doing it wrong? Why can't I make things happen for me? I see other people are able to do it. Why can't I do it with the same kind of ease? And then I always came to this conclusion that I just had to try harder. And so that was what I wanted to explore with this main character in this book was someone whose answer every single time is I just have to try harder. The system might be unfair, but I just have to double down on what I put into it. And I think that especially that kind of thought can be really harmful to yourself. But I also want this book to be kind to people who have that kind of mentality because there's a reason that you want those kind of markers of success, right? There's a reason that you want to have a good job, that you want to be able to provide for your family because financial success is actually important. It provides baseline financial success really provides a lot of security, and security can be very important for you. So I want it to be kind to people who are trying to achieve those kinds of things, but also offer the idea that maybe there's times that you can be more kind to yourself. And maybe there are some things that you shouldn't sacrifice for ultimately achieving this quote unquote better life that you're striving for.
See, whenever I was reading the synopsis of this book, I actually started to wonder if perhaps your own academic pursuits were a little bit of the inspiration for this book, because I do know that you went to Harvard.
I did. That is where this book comes from. I will say the thing that's very different between me and Shay in this book is Shay is essentially a magical STEM girly.
Mhm.
She's a potion worker. She makes potions. She's very talented at that. And I have never, ever been a STEM person. That is not the life I've been living. I certainly did STEM things when I was in high school. I took chemistry, I took biology, I took physics, I took all those classes. I did fine at them, but that was never the route I was trying to go down. I was always pretty strongly in the arts. So that is a pretty key divergence between me and this main character. But otherwise, I was really very much into sort of the academic rat race of it all and really wanted specifically to go to Harvard. And that made it into this character, though I was not using real colleges mostly in this alternate world that I've made here. She wants to go to this fictional other college that is definitely in the Northeast and is definitely essentially a Ivy League type school, but it is not Harvard.
And you were actually one of the first classes in Harvard in part of their arts programs, weren't you?
Yes. So Harvard created this concentration, that's what they call majors there, that is called theater, dance, and media. So it began and I was the first year, and there were only two of us that graduated with that because I wanted to have a degree in theater, but there wasn't a degree in theater when I started. So I was originally an English major. And then when they created the theater, dance, and media program, I immediately wanted to transfer into it. At the time, they were thinking that it would begin with a class that was after me, but then I and another person who wanted to transfer into it, we really showed them. I was like, I've taken all the classes that you have put on the list
Mhm.
as the things that you would have as requirements. I fulfilled the requirements for this degree. So I'd really like to transfer into it so that I can just do a thesis that is actually related to the thing I want instead of writing a paper. And then they were lovely enough to allow me to do that. So I'm very proud to have been one of the first graduates of the program.
And say, and you are more than a triple threat because not only can you act and dance and sing, but then you also write. I mean, you're
Thank
very
you.
heavy in the arts.
Yes, I am very heavy in the arts. I will say I have no visual arts abilities at all. I appreciate other people. That's why I am always so appreciative of my cover artists because they do things I cannot conceive of at all. But yes, I have always been very arts focused. That's what I grew up doing. I've always been very into music, very into performing generally. So that's part of why my first book has so much to do with theater and just arts generally, because that's the world I've always known.
Well, you know what's really funny? I was talking to my editor who helps me with the magazine, and I was showing her your books and your photos, and we were both talking about if this person is not a dancer, they are wasting some good genetics there because you look like you should be a dancer.
Thank you. I love to dance. Dancing is honestly one of my greatest joys in life. My spouse is always, whenever I'm having a bad day, is looking at me like, you should go to a dance class. And I think that's so funny, but it's also entirely correct. But I'm like in a bad mood and I'm like, oh. And then my spouse is like, you should just go to ballet right now. And I'm like, fine. And then I go to ballet and then I come back and I'm like, actually, the world is great. I actually was just in a bad mood and I really needed to go to a class.
What is your favorite thing out of all of those? If you have to choose between like dancing and singing and writing, acting, which one is your favorite?
Oh no, that I feel like I'm being asked to pick a favorite child. I can't, I actually don't think I really can answer that. I think that what I don't know, all of those things are such essential parts of me. And I
Mhm.
think what I love doing or need to do at any given moment shifts. I will say with writing, I love writing. It's very essential to who I am as a person. However, I am also extremely chatty and do really love people. So sometimes I get a little like, God, I'm in this a room by myself for hours writing. And then that's when I'm like, I need to go to a class. I need to do a reading. I need to talk to some people. So I think that that speaks to kind of, I feel like all of my artistic pursuits speak to different parts of me and different parts of my brain. So I think that maybe if you ask me at any given particular moment, if I'm like deep in the drafting hell, I might not be like, writing is my favorite thing. But also after I do a really difficult dance class and I feel really, I don't know, frustrated at my level of skill, that's not the moment either that I'm like, I just love dancing. So I feel like it really changes based on the day, what my needs are and what artistic pursuit might meet them.
That definitely makes sense.
I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out answer, me being like, it's all of them, but it is all of them.
But I do understand that it's like depending on your mood and what's going on, different things meet different needs on different days.
Yeah, it's true, but I do feel like a little bit of a cop-out saying it, even though it's very true.
Writing novels, is that the only kind of writing that you do?
I write plays as well. Primarily, I write novels. It takes a lot of time to write a novel, so that's where most of my energy goes. But I have been known to write a play. I wrote a play that was produced, I think, a year and a half ago now, 2 years ago. Maybe that time is not real. But it was very wonderful to have that happen. It was based on that old poem by Coleridge, Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And that was fun. I tend to like doing plays that have music in them, but are not necessarily the traditional idea of the American musical,
Mhm.
because music has always been very important to me. So it's nice to be able to do a medium where there's live performance and I can mix together a lot of the things that I like. So that's a play that I've written recently. I also am trying in my off time where I'm not writing a novel to work on a comedy. I just really wanted to write a queer comedy. And one of my favorite plays is Noises Off, which is a very classic farce. And I really enjoy that genre. So I just think that there should be more of those, but with a bit more diversity in who's in them. So I just started trying to write that for fun for myself mostly.
Your book, How to Succeed in Witchcraft, was that the first book that you wrote? I mean,
No,
at
it's
all,
not.
was or is that the first one you shopped?
It's the second one I shopped, and I started writing novels when I was in high school. So ages ago at this point. And I wrote this book that was like a magical school novel. I had this idea that I was going to write this like 5 book series and it was
Mhm.
going to be amazing and everyone was going to buy it. And then I wrote that, and then I wrote a full draft of the first one, and then like maybe 50,000 words of the second one, and a good chunk of a third one as well. I just kept going with them. And then after I went to college and I just stopped writing while I was at Harvard, I started writing plays, which are shorter form. So that was a nice switch. Then after I graduated, I rediscovered books and free time. And that was when I started looking back at my work from high school. I revised the first book I wrote, which I think I maybe wrote when I was 15
Oh,
or
wow.
something like, yeah. So I revised the book I wrote when I was maybe 15, when I was 21 or 22.
Very different perspective.
Indeed, indeed. I tried to revise that book, and I think that it was a little eye-opening because at the time when I was in high school, this is sad to say, but I really, not even consciously, but I really was like, well, fantasy is white people. Like that's what it is about.
Hmm.
And so I just did that. And that's so depressing to me to think of now, especially because it wasn't even a very conscious thought of mine. I was like, I'm not going to write a character that was similar to me. I just was like, that's who is in fantasy, is these white
Yeah.
people. So I wrote that kind of character. And then I revised it after college and made it a little bit more in line with my sensibilities and tether on reality
Hmm.
now. In fact, it is not just white people in fantasy. And I tried to query that book, and I was not incredibly successful, like minorly successful. People requested it, but ultimately it was not picked up by any agents because the book wasn't that good. And I'm really able to acknowledge that the bones of it, that I wrote when I was 15 years old, were not great. So I realized that after I got some really lovely feedback from an agent that had read it and then sent me back a rejection that was like, here's all these things that I don't think are working about it, but love your work. And I really looked at that and went, wow, she is correct. And also, I should scrap this book and write a new one, because I realized that I was never going to be able to revise the book into something I would write now.
Hmm.
So I scrapped the book, I stopped querying it, and then I wrote How to Succeed in Witchcraft.
Wow. The second book that you queried is the one that you actually got a contract for.
Yeah, I felt also a lot more savvy the second time around. I feel like trying to query that first book was very helpful for me, at least in a business sense,
Hmm.
because I then understood what I actually would be sending out to people, right? Because in the first book, I just wrote it how I wanted to write it,
Hmm.
and I learned lessons about writing from it, but I also didn't necessarily have an incredibly hooky beginning. I wasn't really thinking about that kind of stuff. So it was nice to realize that when I had been kind of stressed about pulling out a 5 to 10 page sample to send in a query, that I could just write it so that the first 5 to 10 pages would be really hooky and exciting and interesting, instead of being stressed about sending that to people and thinking in the back of my head, well, the good stuff comes later on. So that was good for me. I felt a lot more ready to query with the second one. And also, I had already queried. So I already had this long list of people that were agents that I was interested in that I could requery with a better project. And I also had people that had been somewhat interested in the first one. So I definitely queried those people as well.
I know there was a video that I saw on TikTok that you did, and it really makes me curious how much of this is built into your personality, where you're sitting there saying, you don't have to be excellent, you don't have to be perfect, you don't even have to be good, but I do.
Yes, I laughed because that's a song, and it's like, you don't have to be perfect or exceptionally great. You don't even have to be good, but I do. Is so good. I really like that TikTok sound, and I am absolutely like that. I give very lovely, heartwarming reasonable advice to my friends about how great they are and how that is true. This is all true stuff where I'm like, you're great, your work is great. This is a first draft. This is you're just like working things out. You also don't have to be perfect at things in the first try. And then I absolutely don't afford myself that kind of grace. I'm working on it, but I am much kinder to other people than myself. And I would like that to be less true.
I had to laugh whenever I saw that video because I'm like, oh my God, I feel called out.
Yeah, it's unfortunately true for too many of us.
Some of those videos that you have on TikTok are just so amazing. And it's really such good things that you're doing to publicize your own books because it's things that are catchy, it's things that are memorable, and they're really good. And you've got thousands of views on some of them.
Thank you. I appreciate TikTok especially for its ability to put your stuff in front of people who aren't necessarily following you, but would
Mm.
be interested in the kind of stuff you're doing.
I think now would be a good time to do our 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but I'm a slow learner, so we're going to keep doing it anyway. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This kind of feeds into something we were talking about earlier, but if you had to give up one thing between dancing, acting, singing, or writing, what would you give up?
This is incredibly difficult. Maybe singing? That sounds real. I'm saying it and it sounds incredibly sad to me. This is a world in which I don't want to imagine, but I think I could maybe live without being able to sing, as
find
long
it
as I can
really
also dance.
I find it really interesting because the videos that you have in your media information on your website, there's videos of you singing more than anything else.
That's true. I was thinking more on an everyday level actually than on a professional level, actually. Things that I do, just thinking about myself in my everyday life and what I spend my time in my house doing. Like in my apartment, I'm always dancing around and like putting on music. And I do often also put on music and sing. And apologies to anybody who's ever lived near me. I am frequently like putting on my little musicals playlist and belting it out while I do dishes so that I can stand to do the dishes. But I also think that just dancing around my house is also so key, and me being able to go to those dance classes and make myself feel better and feel happier. So I think that in terms of like emotional release and my own happiness as a person, I was trying to decide between dance and singing, and I think I chose that dance would be a little bit more essential to me as a person. This was a very hard choice to make.
Well, luckily you don't actually have to give up anything, so you're good.
Okay, yeah, thank goodness.
So, question 2. Since you seem to be so together, though, do you have any secret indulgences that are not always necessarily good for you?
Oh, I have too many. I appreciate that you think I seem together. That's nice. Let's see. Okay, things that are not necessarily good to me. These are things that just popped into mind, though I have plenty. Is Googling my own book. I'm always like, maybe I'll find something new. Maybe somebody has posted about it that I can repost or something is happening. And then I'm like, ooh, that's a review. Don't read that. And I will say that this is probably about 1% actually good and 99% disheartening and upsetting to me. But I should Google my own stuff less. And then my other one is definitely watching Instagram Reels. I need to
Oh,
watch
man.
fewer
Yeah.
Instagram Reels. It doesn't bring me as much joy as it sucks up my time.
It's so easy to fall into that, though.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's designed that way.
Yeah, true. So, question 3. What is your favorite activity to do when you really need to unwind? What's the first thing that you go do to try and lift your mood?
I feel like I talk so much about going to dance classes, so I'm going to say something else. To lift my mood, um, honestly, playing games. I'm a very large nerd. So obviously I cannot just on command get my D&D group to meet up. So that doesn't happen all the time. But I play a lot of board games and or like the video game. That's stuff that I go to try and lift my mood. I am playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 right now, months after everybody else did. That has been the thing that I've been doing to get into it. I just really like things that are narrative and interesting, but also absolutely not a form that I create in, because
Mhm.
then there's no sense of like industry, quote unquote, poisoning how you're feeling
Yeah.
about it and being like, oh, or like, I know this person, I should read their stuff or something. Even though I love reading as well and books, that's why I work in the industry, but it's really nice to be able to just enjoy art without having any level of business associated with it.
Yeah, true. So now question 4. Now this could be a book or a movie, but what is something that has really spoken to you? Something that really moved you when you read it or saw it?
Oh, goodness. And so the first thing that popped into my mind was honestly Howl's Moving Castle.
Mm-hmm.
That movie, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. As a kid, I really loved Diane Wynne Jones's work, and I loved that book a lot. But I think that there was just something so magical and moving about it. And I really am moved by people who are able to craft worlds where I just want to crawl inside and never leave. And it
Mm-hmm.
really does that for me. It's not a particularly recent thing that I am thinking of, but it was the first thing that pops to mind.
Recent doesn't make any difference. It's the one that just really spoke to you.
Yes. Okay. Well, then I will go with that. I love both the movie and the book. They're quite different, and I appreciate that as well because I am eternally fascinated by the process of adaptation,
Mm-hmm.
and I really enjoy an adaptation that doesn't feel the same as the source material, but also feels like a separate, very good thing. And I feel like that really hits that for me.
So question 5. Do you have a bucket list item that you would like to check off within the next 5 years?
Ooh, in the next 5 years. A good thing. Oh, I would like to go to a book conference or like a festival. That's something that I think is achievable that I would really like to do at some point in the next 5 years.
You should check out the Frankfurt Book Messe here in Germany.
Okay, I definitely will.
It happens every October, and I think it is actually the largest book fair in the world.
Strong claim to fame.
Yeah. I mean, everybody comes here. You've got agents, you've got editors, you've got authors, you've got publishers. Everybody is here for like a week in Frankfurt, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, that sounds really magical. I feel like one of my things about authordom is not meeting people in person. Really, being an author is very oddly lonely to me. It's our workplace is very much the internet in a
Hmm.
strange way. And I have all these people where I'm like, oh, I really like that person and I admire their work. And I'm like, I have never met that person.
Yeah,
I've never seen their physical form. Their corporeal body is totally unknown to me. And then I see them and I'm like, they're tall when I see them in person or something like that. And that's really strange to me. So I just would like to meet more authors that I respect and love their work, you know?
definitely. I would love to do that. I feel very kind of cut off over here in Germany sometimes.
Especially a lot of the publishing world. The part that I work in, a lot of it is very US centric. So
Hmm.
sometimes I really feel like people in other countries, if they have like a US publisher, feel really cut off from people over here.
Yeah. When is Spells to Forget Us dropping?
The book comes out on September 17th.
And where can they order this?
You can order it anywhere books are sold. Barnes and Noble, your local indie bookstore would be great. You can get it on bookshop.org, any of those places.
And where can they find more information on you and works that you will be bringing out in the future?
I have a website, and my website is ashlinbrophy.com. And then I also have Instagram and TikTok, and my handle on both of those places is Aislinn Brophy author.
And of course, all of your information is going to be in the description of today's podcast and on our website, on our podcast page. And you were also featured in the October November issue of Book Banter magazine and in the year in book buying guide.
Ooh, very exciting.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you being here. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. This has been so much fun.
There you have it, folks. My interview with the incredible Aislinn Brophy. If you really love magical stories with incredible plots and vivid characters, go check out her work. Be sure to check out her website and follow her career, because I have a feeling we're going to see even more great things coming from her. Now, don't forget to go to burkhartbooks.com today before midnight Berlin time and sign up for our mailing list, and you will be entered to win a 1-year subscription to Book Banter Magazine, the PDF format version, and you will be able to follow along with all of the great authors that we talked to in Season 4. We have got great things coming. And don't forget, we are not done with Season 3 yet. We still have authors coming up for all of November and the first 2 weeks of December, and we will be finishing this season with the New York Times bestselling author, Tosca Lee. She is fabulous. Her books are so amazing. You're going to want to hear this interview. So keep following along, subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our mailing list, and just keep following along, because we have got so many great things coming. If you love books like we do, you do not want to miss a single podcast episode or issue of our magazine. I promise you that. Now, don't forget, we will be announcing the winner of the 1-year subscription to Book Banter Magazine on Halloween as our treat for one very lucky person. But for right now, I think that's enough for today. So you know what time it is, folks. It's time for you all to go forth and be really happy.